Welcome, viewers. I am CJ, your host for Dating and Relationships, or DNR for short, podcast. I am excited to bring you real, authentic conversations about dating and relationships from all aspects of today. We're here sharing issues, questions, and or stories that will hopefully bring to light some answers, light entertainment, and more understanding of today's dating and relationship worlds we all have encountered. My guests on this podcast are volunteers from all walks of life and backgrounds and are eager to share some of their personal experiences to hopefully connect, build a community for growth, and specifically on this topic. Viewers are welcome to share some of their stories or if they relate to a specific episode, but in a very respectful and cordial manner. The hope is to reach as many viewers as possible, hopefully worldwide, to create understanding, communicate and learn from one another, and also to come together. Please enjoy the videos. Hi, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Dating and Relationships with me, CJ, your host. And I'm here to introduce you a new friend of mine that I met a couple of years ago, and this is Josh. Say hi.
How you doing, everyone? Josh Encarnacion.
I met him on an outing a couple of years back, and we just clicked it off as far as intellectual conversations. And he has a lot to share. So let's begin. Josh, tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, what you have done up to this point.
Yeah. So I graduated from Springfield Central High School, then went to the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth. I studied human resources management.
Mm,
I did a minor in leadership and civic engagement.
mm.
That was after being part of the School of Engineering.
Oh,
I
okay.
switched over.
Oh.
Um, Mommy being Dominican, she wasn't super happy about that, but we made it work. Then I got a job in California after graduating.
Mm,
Started working for Google as a recruiter.
mm.
And then I jumped into the world of startups.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I started building different types of companies, all technology based.
Mm-hmm.
Some in insurance, some in finance, some in healthcare, some in education. But my goal has always been to try to recruit people, help them grow their skill sets, and
Mm.
then think about management in a way that's inclusive of who we are beyond just what we're at, like at our desk.
Yes, absolutely. It's very important nowadays to just keep evolving professionally and personally,
Yeah.
correct?
And being able to be yourself. And that's kind of what I try to bring to all the work that I do. With helped me open a business in Springfield coming home. That's how I feel.
Oh,
I opened the office downtown
mm,
where what I call leadership development consulting. It
mm,
means meeting businesses where they are, helping them on the HR side of things,
okay.
but also helping their leadership teams think of how to capture different markets. If it's
Mm-hmm,
recruiting for staff, if it's trying to find new customers, if it's trying to think of a new way of introducing their work and their information and their services,
mm-hmm.
like the communication side,
Yeah.
um, just being able to be present with them and help them out in those ways.
That's amazing because nowadays, working in different capacities myself, a lot of employees in companies or even companies in leadership also need the same set of skills that you are going to be providing. So that's amazing. We'll
Yeah.
definitely touch base on his business later on, but if you want to know more, stay tuned to the description and we'll put his business and information on the description. Okay. So going back to the dating and relationships, one of the reasons why I will, one, first of all, let me thank you for being here and yes, and giving us your time. But because you are a single male in your 30s and you have basically grown to a point about, where you at in your life that maybe you're ready to settle and start something new. So before we do that, can you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about your upbringing, how maybe family or your environment influenced you to get you to where you at today?
Yeah. I mean, born in New York, raised in Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Mm,
I moved to Springfield, or my family moved to Springfield. Specifically, my mom moved us to Springfield right before high school started.
mhm.
And the reason being is my father was deported when we lived in Lawrence, Massachusetts,
Oh,
when I was pretty young. and she wanted to be able to help us build a life outside of his story to
Okay.
start. And luckily, my stepfather was there every step of the way. So
Okay.
my family's super Dominican, but he's a Cuban man.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I mean, le encanta gritar. So he fits right in. But obviously it was a culture shock when we got to Springfield because I looked around and everybody was either Puerto Rican or black.
Oh, okay.
But it taught me to be able to like sit outside of myself and not be used to, not always think of what I'm used to.
Mhm. Mhm.
Aprendí mucho,
Mhm.
right? But I think what my upbringing taught me the most was to never settle,
Mhm.
and beyond never settling, being understanding of people that are different from you.
Mhm.
Because like spending summers in New York with my grandmother, she stayed back there when we moved to Lawrence.
Okay.
Life is very different. Right? Like New York City, specifically Brooklyn. I was born
Yeah.
in Manhattan, but I spent summers in Brooklyn.
Uh-huh.
Um, you saw things from a different perspective than you did in Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Mhm. Mhm.
Lawrence felt like little Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
In Brooklyn, there was Dominicans present, but there was also Jamaicans, there was also Haitians, there was also Puerto Ricans, there was
Very
also
diverse.
yes,
Mm.
in the truest sense, like nothing was considered normal.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean, and we had the crazy stuff where like a bunch of kids running around playing hide and seek, 400 kids in the project building.
Wow.
Uh,
That's
right.
amazing.
But we also had a lot of the hard family
Um,
struggles where,
mhm.
we're living in project housing and you think you have, that plate of Chinese food for yourself, but you're splitting it with six people.
Yeah.
Um, and you're doing so happily because you don't even know any better.
Yeah.
To come to Springfield, I remember when my sister, she looked at the backyard and was like, "Oh wow, we have a trampoline." And I'm looking at mommy like, "Wow, we have grass."
It's not so much anymore. Yeah.
And that made me really grateful for not only this area, but like
Mhm.
in life in general.
Mm.
And I think those are some of the things that I really like lean back on, right?
Mhm.
Like, don't quit, don't settle. You can always find better.
Mhm.
Make sure you are understanding that not everyone's the same. We don't all think the same, even if we look the same.
You're not. Yeah.
And then lastly, just to be grateful. Like every new situation gives you a chance to smile at something, and if you let it pass you, you'll never enjoy life.
It's amazing how, having an environment where you grew up and then coming to a different environment, yeah, there's still kind of like similar types of people around, but the environment is different. That made you look in a different perspective to see that and be grateful and grow from there. I that's a great analogy, but it's also your life experience. That's your reality, correct?
It happened, and it didn't stop because when I graduated from high school to go to college on the other side of the state, like I almost felt the same feeling of when I got to Springfield, right?
Mm.
When I got to Springfield, everybody was kind of like, at least in my classes and the students
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
people I grew up with, they were kind of over it because
yeah.
they lived here.
Hmm.
But I come in and I'm like, wow. They're like,
Right.
why the hell are you so happy about it? But then, you get comfortable, you settle.
Yeah.
Now I'm moving again. When I get to college, UMass Dartmouth is concrete.
Oh
Like it's
yeah.
cement everywhere.
Hmm.
But it's not project housing. To
Right.
me, it was beautiful.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, like again, like also thinking, I'm the first in my family to have the full on campus experience.
Mm. So you're a first generation college student?
Like one and a half, I guess,
Okay.
because mommy went back and got her GED and then she went into the double master's degree.
Oh wow.
But my dad obviously never did any sort of
Yeah.
post
But if
secondary
you were
school.
over the age of 12 or 13 when she achieved that, you're still first gen.
Yeah, we pretty much did it together,
Oh,
right? But
that's so sweet.
the thing is, when I got there, I was excited. And then I moved across the country and it was the same feeling.
So you went literally from east all the way to west to California,
Yeah,
correct? Wow.
right after college. And again, that same thing will show up, right? Everybody's like, "Oh, this place is this and that and the third," and I'm like, "Oh, what you're talking about? This looks like a TV show for me."
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know. I just carried that sense of gratitude,
Mm,
but it was always because to me it looked like something new, something
right.
worth exploring.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I guess for some people you take it for granted.
I like that. Yeah, I like that because you're coming in with fresh eyes because you've seen it from a different perspective and now you're evolving and you're seeing opportunities. places that you've never been to before, and now I'm assuming your mind at this moment is expanding more and more.
There was this thing that I read that I feel like kind of captures this that I'll never let go. And I feel like that came from the feeling on the inside came from my family. But when I
Hmm.
saw the words, it made so much sense. It was like, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change.
Oh.
And I remember like looking at, projects and being like, all right, well, I mean, we can have fun somehow. Y todo cambió rapidito. Like, what
Hmm.
am I doing in California?
Yeah.
Like almost instantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then to come back home, I can see how it's hard.
Let me ask you this. Having the ability to, you know, go to college, graduate, go to literally across the nation to a whole new state, and also being Hispanic descent. As you know, in the Hispanic community, there's this machismo, masculinity, or almost this ego-ness. Let me ask you, taking that back, did that have any influence or did that change with you as you were growing up to you becoming a young professional?
Yeah, I think a lot of what I well, to start with the whole conversation around machismo, like I grew up under the negative consequences of when it's uncontrolled, right?
Mm.
I had to learn my father's story because he was there, then he wasn't, right? And so I
Yeah.
saw a lot of his ego and pride take over the way he was thinking about things.
Hmm.
And I've been privileged enough to reconnect with him after he got deported. So 16 years after, I went and go see him in the Dominican Republic, right?
Hmm.
And we had the time together, and I got to ask, like, would you change anything? But in his life story, he wouldn't.
Right.
But in my life story, I still have wished that he did things differently.
Right.
And so that's coming face to face with that pride and that ego. But he
Yeah.
was he was proud.
Mm.
I get to
Yeah.
the Dominican Republic, and they're like, "Mi hijo, mi gran hijo, hijo de Nueva York," like orgulloso.
Yes. Yes.
And it felt good in the moment, but then when you look back at it, you're like, wow, like all that pain and frustration that I had when he
Yeah.
wasn't there, he doesn't even recognize it,
No.
nor could he even imagine that I went through any of
So how did that make you feel? You know, at the time when you were going through all these things and not having your biological father
that.
to witness that.
I think I thank God for my stepfather because he was there to witness all these
Yeah.
things, and we did have that change of hands where I was frustrated with him,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
knowing that he wasn't my father.
Mhm.
It took a couple years before he actually stepped up in my mind into that role.
Mhm.
But what it taught me again was to be grateful
Mhm.
because he was there
Yeah.
as opposed to someone who's not.
Exactly. So you still had that male role model.
Right.
And do you feel like you mentioned he's Cuban? And again, let me ask you, did you experience any of that ego masculinity or machismo with your
And
stepfather?
that was the thing that was really special. And I think what I am trying to give way to is that
Yeah.
he is like a God fearing man in the sense that he's still super Cuban. Like he doesn't even know when he's yelling. I don't either.
It's a normal.
This is just so normal. And he thought about things in a different way because we're from an island. Like,
Right. With the Caribbean.
I mean, his dad has chickens in a coop in Queens, New York.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, like
Still follow the tradition.
still to 2025, like
Wow.
ese hombre tiene 90 años, like it's just normal,
Wow. 90 years old is old.
right? But we had those traditional norms from how we grew up. But when I say he was a God-fearing man, I watched him treat my mother in a way that I didn't see my father do it.
Okay.
And it's just little things that I can call out that I appreciated. He would wake up before her and make her coffee every
Mm,
morning.
that's so sweet.
But she had like, you know, schoolwork to do before she went to work
Mm,
because again, she got her GED and then she went and got two master's degrees.
yeah, yeah.
I watched that happen.
Mm.
Um,
So you learn from that behavior.
yeah, and he
Mm.
was a very like humble person in the sense that like there was no way to humiliate him. There was a morning I'll never forget. He got up, he had like these American flag boxers and roller skates on a
Okay.
las 6 de la mañana, blasting the music,
That earth?
and that was us getting ready for school.
Wow.
So I like that taught me a side of masculinity that was like really appealing to me because I'm clown. Like I love joking, I love
Yeah.
laughing. But I see that sometimes, like en el machismo, tú no puedes ser así, como
Yeah, you
no te
can't
puedes,
show
no
that
te puedes, yeah,
vulnerability.
exactly. And he always modeled that for me.
Mm,
Like I've seen him cry, I've seen him laugh, I've seen him do all these things, and yet I still do believe like we both have work to do on in terms of how not to like get caught in that machismo like feeling.
mm-hmm,
But I do think because he was there to help um create like a soft landing from when my
mm-hmm,
dad got deported.
mm-hmm.
I started learning a lot from the way he was moving, and I didn't realize that. It took me years to realize that he's the word that I learned to kind of see him under is meek.
Yeah. Mm,
Meek is like, you have a sword, but you don't need to use it all the time.
mm, mm. It's there, but it's only when it's necessary.
Yeah, he's not going around
The
showing everybody.
armor.
Exactly. And I watched him confront my grandfather. I watched him confront my uncles, and these are all big guys, right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
5'11", 200 plus pounds. They're all 6 foot plus,
Oh,
that,
wow.
and these are men that are used to being able to get their way however it means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them to respect him also taught me like, okay, there's a different way to show up
Right.
than having to be the
Oh,
aggressor all
right. Yeah. You don't have to puff your chest up all the time, to show
the
that you're
time.
more manly, but you can earn respect, maybe diplomatic way.
He always like él siempre estaba pendiente. Like every morning I'd wake up, he was already awake, and he'd kind of do this to me, which was like kind of creepy. But like I'd get to the door and he'd be like, you know, and I was always like, "What are you saying?" As a little kid,
He's always watching you. I'm
always
always
watching,
watching
yeah, like, and I'm like, okay, and that to me helped me understand machismo, like how to be a man in a different way and
you.
tackle a lot of that machismo feeling. But it's not like it didn't come back up.
Hmm.
Like I can't lie, like in my younger 20s, like I didn't feel like on top of the world and invincible,
Hmm.
especially
Hmm.
because I was still not fully aware of how much of my father's shadow I crept
Yeah.
in.
Oh, really?
He has 21 kids, you know,
You're one of 21 kids?
the oldest, and I had met some of their mothers, like,
So,
and I've
so okay, let me just take it back a little bit. So you're one of 21 kids. You're the oldest. So that means he had multiple women,
mhm,
and you met some of the mothers of your siblings or half siblings.
yeah.
Wow, how was that? Go ahead.
I mean, I never saw it as abnormal because when I would spend weekends with him, we'd be at a different woman's house.
Hmm.
And so I didn't think that it was an abnormal thing
Right.
until we were all in the hospital room before he's getting sent away. And now I'm like, wait, all these kids look like me. And who
Wow.
are all these women? Oh, I met them before. And
Oh,
ahora mami está metiéndome pregunta, like,
who are these? Yeah.
right. But to me, it took a long time to unravel all of that.
Yeah.
And I think it was not only because of how painful it was to
Mm,
realize
mm,
how unfair that is to me and my
yeah.
family, but also because I couldn't understand it. It was not normal.
Right. Because you were just so used to it.
For the longest, like as a
Hmm.
teenager, like
Hmm.
18, 19, 20, 20, people would ask, oh, how many kids you want? I'm like 21. But
That's what you said?
I would say that not knowing, And I mean like he's proud. Like I
Mm.
understand that level of machismo is like unshakable because he
That's like
he
kind
has
of
our names on his arms
no
too. He
way.
has a scroll on one side with like 10-ish names, and a scroll on the other side with 10-ish names.
Wow.
I'm 32 years old, no kids.
That's a very interesting point because right there, I'm going to interpret that as your father taking that egotistical view as I'm proud that I have 21 kids because in the Hispanic role, it was always like, back in the days in the kings and queens time that the most kids you had, your name, your legacy continues. Do you think your father was trying to do something similar to that effect?
Absolutely.
Mm,
I mean, so much so that my name came from my mom looking for salvation, is the way she explains it.
mm,
So Joshua from the Bible is the person that brings folks
mm.
to the promised land, right?
Okay.
But that was her reading, in the hospital, the Bible.
Wow.
And my name was supposed to be Mario, which is his name.
Oh, right, because you're the first.
My half brother, who
Hmm.
is not my mom's son,
Okay.
who's 2 years younger than me, but 2 years older than my mom's daughter,
Uh-huh.
my full sister,
Uh-huh.
his name is Mario.
Okay.
and my sister's middle name is Marie, right?
Okay.
And then one of my sister's name is Mario Liz.
Oh, so they kept the M.
He.
Oh, he did. Oh, yeah.
So when you ask that question, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Él lo piensa así, and it took me a while to recognize that that's what it is, right?
Right.
He feels my success is his success, and
Right.
in some ways it is because I won't be here without him.
Right.
But in other ways, he watched none of it happen.
Right.
And when it came down to like exploring that like machismo that lives within us, the thing that I think in therapy that really helped me understand like the importance of that responsibility is everybody likes to have sex, but nobody likes to take care of the children.
Mm-hmm.
And, like the first time I heard it, I was angry because I was
Mm.
like, for somebody to tell me that, like así por así, I'm
Yeah.
like, pero tú ni sabes de la historia mía,
Right.
hablando a mí así,
And you
and
know,
I'm like, it's me that you're talking about.
absolutely. According to that, just to hit on that point, for example, a lot of Hispanic men out there have a certain stereotype, correct? They have a stereotype of being, womanizer, having multiple women, cheaters, et cetera, et cetera. And you could just say that your father is sort of the epitome of something of that nature, and he fits the stereotype. And so I think at some point, what does that do to you? Like, when did you realize that? And being the oldest and thinking things is normal, everything that your father was doing, when did the shift happen? Like, when did you realize that, is that something that you look forward to? Like, what happened in you? What made you maybe change your mind that maybe, in other words, obviously you don't want to follow in your father's footsteps. So tell me, when was that moment that it clicked for you?
Well, I think it clicked multiple times.
Okay.
Like I can't say it was just like one moment that made
Yeah.
me realize and approach things differently. I think
Mhm.
everything is situational, but like I because of being there with my mom and my sister, right? So
Mhm.
my sister's 4 years younger than me.
Mhm.
Like that was the household, me, my mom, my sister, and my stepfather,
Mhm.
who, for lack of a better words, are bien respetuoso.
Right.
Like he's never, at least in my experience,
Mhm.
he was always a stand-up person.
Mhm.
He was my mother for 17 years. They got
Mhm.
married on the 18th year, and then they decided to
Mhm.
separate. But that's their story.
Mhm.
Um, I believe that if things could have gone a different way, I would have married my high school sweetheart.
Really?
But that was, I'm 16 years old. I don't know any
Right. You don't know
better.
any better. Mhm.
Yeah, and like in I could confidently say because like again I went to high school up the road here. Like that affection that my stepfather showed me, people received it too,
Mm.
right? And the only reason why I'm not with her today, like she like unfortunate for me, she went and found somebody else and then she got pregnant soon after,
Oh wow.
and
Mm.
this is all in high school.
Oh wow.
But like even then, so I still didn't realize how much hurt and pain I was gonna go through
Mhm.
thinking about that story. And it took a lot of humility to be like, yo, that's fucked up, you know? But it didn't hit me till like a couple years after
Yeah.
because it's so traumatic, but you don't know how traumatic
Right. Right.
that, still to this day, like, it's a parte de mi historia.
Right.
So, still, the door is not fully open to, like, that machismo-ness, right? Like, I'm still kind of like, well, I guess things happen. The niño,
Yeah.
and realizing, like, oh, the world is difficult when it comes to dating hit me after that,
Mhm.
right? Because we kind of met the high school sweetheart way. Like we were at like a high school basketball game. She had donuts. I asked for one. She fed me one. Now we're like eating donuts at a basketball game. And a whole year passes by. Her family loves me. My family loves her. And then, I think the story has it that she kind of went through something for herself. But like for me, it was like I wasn't as attentive,
Right.
but I was also a 16 turning the 17-year-old boy in that
Right.
age. Well,
Right.
no excuses, but like whatever. She moves on to somebody else, and now she's starting a whole different life.
Mhm.
I'm sitting there like, well, what the fuck do I do?
What's next?
And I was still pretty
And
boyish.
there's a lot of teenage kids or guys too that sometimes don't understand that when you meet someone, especially a girl about the same age, typically women are a little bit more advanced
More mature.
and that's what happens when kids fall in love in high school, and then all of a sudden that that changes happen. It's because she's already out there somewhere else, and you are still developing or trying to get to at that level. So I get that you felt like dumbfounded.
He was working at a big Y.
Hmm.
I was playing video games at home.
Yeah, you were still on that level. Okay, makes sense.
I was into sports
Yeah,
and like the team.
she was already living life.
Uh, and so my mother had did a great job of like protecting me
Yeah,
from some of those harder feelings. And
right.
again, I had a stepfather that was present.
Mhm.
Like I can't deny his presence being important because that would me be that would be me lying to you. Like
Mhm.
he didn't help me calm down from all of that
Yeah.
because he did.
So it's great that you had that support, like that fatherly role.
Exactly. And so I don't take that for granted
Mm.
because I could lie and say like, oh, I figured it out on my own, and that's not true. But it did make that situation did make way for me thinking about things totally different in college. That's when the machismo really hit me.
Oh, talk about that.
Well, the reality is, it's like, okay, since I didn't make it work in high school, right?
Mm.
Now, yet again, I'm somewhere I don't know anyone. But now I'm not the same boy that I was, And like,
Mm.
and physically, I was different, right? Like in high
Mm.
school, I was like a little shorter, a little
Yeah.
rounder, a little cuter, and then now I'm like strong, muscular, right? Like
Right.
active in the regular sense,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or like I guess like the
You're coming into your manhood.
exactly.
Mm.
But at that point, I'm like, I don't want to get my heart broken again. So
Oh, so you kind of
don't get too close.
right.
But it's college. Like my experience is stepping into a predominantly white institution.
Mhm.
I'm the little island boy.
Mhm.
Like I'm the
The one that's a little odd one. Mhm. Very,
very visible,
very
loud,
known.
funny. Everybody's like, yeah, that kid, and they
Yeah.
know exactly who the hell. But that's when the ego and that's when the pride and that's when all of it creeps in because it's like, okay, now you think you're hot stuff because you don't know how to talk about your feelings.
Yeah. But I just wanted to add to that. I like how you are taking the story to that level of a male, what they go through and how they grow and how they develop that mindset. Because by the time you went to college, and you're starting to understand and explore different relationships and dating, for example, your ex high school sweetheart, it was being a mom and it was already living an adult life. And you were just now exploring what dating and relationships were, correct?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. Because by the time I got to college, she had a 2 year
Yeah, there you go.
old. I'm like, I'm fighting, right? But at the same time, people ask, oh, how many kids you want? 21.
You still had that mentality.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? But like, this is around the time where like I can confidently say like having been in therapy for 10 plus years, like I know where like the toxic masculinity creeps in. Because it's like it's a mix between el machismo eso y haciendo mujeriego que uno se
Hmm.
pierde and like you don't have to feel like you're crawling out of your skin all the time from
Hmm.
hearing things or hurting.
Hmm.
And so for me, my solution was like, all right, well, I'm not gonna find love, so I'm gonna work my ass off
Hmm.
because I've experienced poverty.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
I'm in a college campus where like people are not excited to read a book.
Right.
Whereas I can't read enough books
Right.
because I'm like
So you were yearning for it
I was yearning for it because it was better than anything that I was experiencing, what I felt like
anywhere else.
anywhere else.
Yeah.
So I'm in the library and then I'm in the gym and then I'm
Hmm.
at work, and I'm working 6 jobs
Hmm.
and I'm working out all day.
Hmm.
And, it got me to this point where I felt kind of invincible. And then the cycle happened again, which is why you say like what clicked.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I met someone in college
Hmm.
towards the later years of my college experience. And again, I'm thinking, okay, now I'm here. Now I found the one, right?
Hmm.
¿Y qué pasa? We move across the country together.
Hmm.
And another one of those, like, well, I gotta find what is important to me. And I'm like, I've been here before.
Hmm.
Like, como que me dejaste de querer cuando
Mhm.
te necesitaba,
Right.
and
So let's say that again. So you felt she stopped loving you when you most needed her.
yeah, and it was around that time where like in my head at that point I felt comfortable being like, all right,
Mhm.
maybe now it's get married and have children,
Okay. Okay.
but it wasn't the right time for her,
Right.
and we were going through stuff,
Mm.
like we had grown through the traumatic experience in ourselves, like we had an abortion that got in the way of the relationship.
Oh, okay. And did you know about that or
I did, and
okay.
it was her choice, but like the reality is that still puts a wedge between people, right?
Yeah, it does. It changes people a lot. Hmm.
And at the time, I don't think we knew how to talk about
Right. You guys were not mature enough.
early 20s.
Yeah.
And we moved across the country.
Yeah.
And I'm working 12-hour days.
And you didn't have any support out there or any kind of assistance or help.
Interracial relationship.
So let me ask you, you mentioned earlier in your conversation that you had 10 plus years of therapy. Did that sort of contribute to some of your therapy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Okay.
I think I had already opened that door prior in college because it was counseling,
Yeah.
but it was just normal to me. The counseling was normal to me because I
Mhm.
had roommates that
Mhm.
were counselors,
Right.
and like mom going through 2 master's degrees, she had seen counseling as a normal thing,
Right.
never labeled like therapy,
Right.
but you go and you see people and you talk things out.
Right. So do you feel, again, you're in your mid 20s, right? And now you went through a life decision that kind of shaped you a little bit and made you seek counseling to figure things out. Do you feel at this moment um, emotional intelligence was developing
Yeah,
to the level? Okay.
yeah,
And how do you feel about that? Do you agree? Like, a lot of our viewers may want to find out and understand if emotional intelligence is something that you should be seeking. I think so because I feel like because I also had a hard upbringing, I feel that I got emotionally intelligent a lot sooner than most folks. And you're now experiencing, I mean, I did it a lot younger, but for you as a male, Hispanic male in your mid 30s, do you feel that was integral or super important in your life?
yeah, absolutely. And I tried my best to stay honest in the areas I felt weaker when it came to emotional intelligence and where
Okay.
I felt stronger because part of like what my studies brought out was this interest in psychology and business.
Hmm.
And I had a really strong mentor who had a background in business coaching, leadership coaching, right?
Okay.
So all that language was there in one,
Hmm.
and that was kind of where I hid, right?
Hmm.
Like all my understanding of people was in the business world.
Hmm.
So I'm becoming more successful,
Yeah.
but I'm knowing myself less, like as a
You're
person.
like detaching yourself
Yeah,
because you're focusing on this piece of yourself. And you know what? That's a good point too. A lot of men out there sometimes don't want to settle or start a family until they're financially secure or they feel that they have to something in the world. And sometimes they'll dabble in and out of, relationships and go through hardships because they're not themselves ready yet. Do you feel that that was your case too?
I feel like that came after
Okay.
that big separation with my college sweetheart.
Okay.
Like I felt like I was trying to find a reason for what she was
Mm,
feeling,
mm,
but really what I was doing, I was blaming myself.
mm,
If I could have gone back and looked at it from a different perspective,
mhm.
like someone saying they're not ready is just they're not ready.
Exactly.
But instead, because of the machismo that I was trying to work out of,
That you developed.
right, that came up over time, it was like my pride and my ego was hurt because it was like, what do you mean? Like,
Right.
worst thought is like, I'm perfect. What are you talking about?
Right.
Right? But it's
Right.
like, oh, there's no space for how the person feels.
Yeah.
And that put me in a downward spiral
Yeah.
because now I'm once again having to feel these feelings that I was trying to run away
Yeah.
from. And as much as I was trying my best to stay honest to like what was going on in the moment, I didn't
Yeah.
want to face it.
Right.
Like I was like, this is too much. So I did feel like I was like, oh well, maybe if I make more money, then I'll be ready again.
Oh, okay. So you focused on that and you didn't focus on developing you yourself more. You just develop on your success, your financial success.
Yeah, and I mean the reason why therapy was so helpful was because I was able to talk about that while it was happening.
Okay. So
Like,
having the opportunity to sort of live in the moment and to talk about it, you had like self-reflection maybe constantly going on versus other men out there who don't have the ability or the opportunity to develop those things end up not solidifying a good base or a good relationship because they're too focused outwardly instead of inwardly.
inwardly.
And you need to have a balance. And so a lot of times, like, you know, me and a couple of the panelists who've been here before and certain friends, like especially us women who are, you know, very independent, strong, we have our things together. We're looking for someone who is complete, but we now then get men that we date or that we meet who they have all this success and their marriage and relationship fell apart because they didn't pay attention too much to that piece of the family, the kids growing up. They were absent. And even though in their mind, they feel that they provided this, they provided a house, they provided this, and I can't believe, you know, she left me for this and that because they don't realize that they were missing that emotional availability component to the relationship. And, you know, for men out there, this is just an observation. Um, when you wonder why the relationship didn't work, did it not work because it was her fault? Or was it your fault? Or maybe it was both of you. There's no right or wrong answer. You just have to self reflect. Do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. Like I, I went through all the stages of grief. You know, at first I blamed the other person,
Mm,
and then I realized I was like prisoner to them for that, because like I kept trying to find ways for them to change,
mm-hmm,
and it already happened. Like even if they did change, it already happened. You know, I had to come
right,
to a place of acceptance.
mm-hmm,
And then I started growing insecure. And I think that's where
mm,
the machismo creeps in. That's where the
mm.
mujeriego like
The
lifestyle becomes
womanizer, yeah.
it becomes like appealing because it's
Mm.
like instead of
No
putting my
attachment, no attachment.
yeah, well instead of putting myself back on this platform where I could fall from, I could just like stay on the ground and not care
Mm-hmm,
and like essentially be a coward and run away from feelings.
mm-hmm,
And I knew I was doing it,
mm-hmm.
but at the same time it doesn't matter, right? Like if you don't do anything about it.
Right.
So I was, for sure, there was a couple years where I was that like, I know type of person. Oh, I know this is wrong. I know I shouldn't do that. I know. No, don't worry about it. Like I'm okay. Like I know.
Yeah.
But it's like,
I fall to that too. I'm not gonna lie.
and I mean, I think everybody does. But
Yes.
like, I definitely like fell into that hard because, well, one, all the models that I saw growing up,
Mm,
they were starting to kind of say to me like, see, right? Like you see why we were like this.
mm-hmm.
You were so mad at us for being machismo or womanize,
Machista,
right?
yeah.
Machista or womanizers, but like, but you see why?
Mm.
Like, oh, tú quieres amar tanto, pero te rompe el corazón, ¿y ahora qué?
Yeah. So is it safe to say that I'm gonna put it out there. If anyone wants to go ahead and comment, you can. You know, please keep it respectfully. Um, Men kind of like become this womanizer type insecure because they're insecure
Yeah,
because they feel that they can get anyone and not get attached and then just move on.
yep,
And so they tend to sort of play with, you know, women's or their significant other's feelings because they don't want to get hurt.
yeah, and I think in therapy, what I have learned to say out loud, and after taking the the moments that happened to really like decompress, was that I'm not afraid to get my heart broken,
Exactly.
and that made me feel really empowered. Like that made me feel really liberated
Yeah.
from like everything in the past. But it's not to say that my heart didn't get broken again
Yeah.
because it did.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like you say it and you're
Yeah.
like like I'm not gonna go heartbroken.
Yeah.
You're like please, but I had to be able to get back there again
Yeah.
because that was me. That was me
And,
when I was younger.
so let me ask you this. This is the emotional intelligent part. I, for example, being a woman who's gone through three lifetimes in this lifetime, per se, um, I'm not scared at all to get my heart broken because I already know the conclusion. Because I know myself enough that I'm like, hey, it's like throwing yourself in the sharks. You're gonna be able to swim, and
You'll rise again.
you'll rise again eventually. And yeah, you might get nicked or you might get bitten or whatever, but at the same time, getting back out there, it's not scary. It's only scary because you already know what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when it's a heart, it's a heart, it's an emotion.
Yes.
And so the emotionally intelligent piece of me is like, oh, that's an easy remedy. So that's why I'm not scared to dive into an emotional relationship. But am I willing to go into an emotional relationship that's already kind of doomed before it starts? Because the other person, like the guy, is not ready
Yeah.
because it could be going through the same stages you are in.
Well, it took me some time to recognize that in myself.
Mm.
And then as I continued dating, it took me some more time to recognize it in someone else. And it wasn't
Mm.
until I could see it in another person that I was
Yeah.
able to fully forgive the younger part of me I wasn't letting people be ready. Like,
Mm.
and I've heard that in so many ways where it's like you can't rush somebody.
No.
But I realized that my fault in a lot of the pain that I experienced was that I was trying to rush people.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend that would tell me, he's a doctor in psychology, so I know it was coming from a good place, but he would say, not everyone's ready for what you're ready for.
Correct.
And to me, that was frustrating because I'm like, okay, I keep hearing all these like stories about how men ain't this and men ain't that, men can't do this and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, ya yo estoy listo, me quiero casar.
Yeah. You're ready.
But yeah, my experience was the opposite,
Mm.
right? Like, I wish I could have done the high school sweetheart thing. I
Mm.
wish I could have done the college sweetheart thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could have done the thing where I meet somebody where I moved
Yeah.
away and move home.
Mm-hmm.
None of that happened.
Right.
And instead of getting frustrated, I was like, all right, what? I'm clearly doing something here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm part of this cycle.
You're
And
the common denominator.
right, at least in my experience,
Right.
I can't blame everyone for what keeps happening to me.
Correct.
Either I'm asking for it to happen and ahora ya estamos in the arena of masoquita,
I'm not saying.
right?
Yeah.
Or I'm allowing it to happen.
Correct.
And that's why when the question you asked was like, when did it click for you? Like when did
There
it
were stages.
it was stages. Like I feel like one day I'm like, yeah, no, like that machismo lifestyle ain't it. And then another day I'm like, maybe it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's like every emotion, like it was waves
Mm-hmm.
up and down. And like I think every time a wave passed, I was a little more in control.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, like every time a wave hit, it's like my whole house got shattered. Like it was a
Yeah.
tsunami, like
Yeah.
starting all
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now it just feels like, all right, well, I mean, I learned from that.
Mm.
But if I do it again, like la primera vez, it's a mistake. The second, you a pendejo. Like, hey,
First time, yeah, shame on me, is it?
second
Second
time,
time, shame on you, per
and
se. But in reality, what you're saying is that you recognize that you had a repeating cycle
yes,
within you, and it wasn't until you spoke to other folks, other mentors, other people who are older, wiser, that you felt the emotional intelligence part of you growing.
yep.
And when you recognize that you're the common denominator, what changes did you make at that point to stop the cycle?
Well, I think the things that I started exploring within myself, like one, codependency, like trying to understand what role that plays in the way that I pick partners or the
Hmm.
way that I allow partners to pick me.
That's a key point.
Because I feel like in some ways I kept making space for somebody that needed to feel safe, but couldn't actually like provide what I was asking for.
Wasn't right. It's like, for example, when it's the other side, like if it's me, I could be with someone because I know me fully, so I know what I can give. But maybe someone's not ready to for me because they're missing something that I want or need. So you're saying is like you're ready and emotionally available. physically, financially, and you can give that security, but that person is missing what you need. So therefore, that person's not ready. And
Yeah.
you recognize that. So there was no more blaming thing here, right? Wow, that's big.
Yes, and it was a conversation instead of a confrontation. And like
Yes,
then also being able to let go of the influences from the past. Like it was important for me to confront my father's story. That's why I can
yes.
talk about it without the pain. But
Hmm.
not until I did that did I realize like I'm not like him. Like
Yeah.
there was this pressure, don't be like your father. And it's like, all right, well,
You're giving me goosebumps.
I mean, I could say that that could happen, but I don't have 21 kids. So I mean, like,
No, you don't.
I don't think that that didn't happen.
So let me ask you this question. Let's ask you the question. If you were to have your way, how many kids would you truly want?
I mean, I think three is great.
There you go. No more 21.
More 21. No, three is great.
So let's go ahead and go into relationship and family because you gave a lot of background, your development, your you know reinventing yourself and reflecting. And I want to say that it's okay for our viewers, especially our male viewers, especially in their 30s, to do these things prior to investing in a relationship because if not, what happens? If you're both learning, you're going to eventually go to different places, and a lot of the times the relationship falters because of that, because you start good but you end up in different places, so you're not together anymore. And I've seen a lot of people who are married and like 15, 20 years, and now they're falling apart because now they're in different places. So it's a good thing to work on yourself first, know yourself or know thyself, as they say, before you do fully invest in a relationship, because then you know what you can give, right? And what you can invest. And you can then identify if the other person has those qualities. Now, talking about that, what qualities are you looking for in a partner now that you just mentioned that you're more ready to settle, correct?
Yeah.
So what qualities you think a male in their mid 30s
Hmm.
seeks now who've gone through all of that growth?
So my partner right now, she's amazing because she's understanding.
Understanding.
Yeah.
That's a key word. That's very important for us women too.
Like I feel there isn't anything I can't tell her,
Mm.
even if it's difficult.
Communication, open communication.
And for that reason, it's easy to think about the future.
And this is projection. This is couples goals, like same visions,
Yeah.
correct? I'm writing it down for those of you who are taking notes.
And
So these qualities are important. So is understanding, open communication, and someone you can plan a future with and have the same goals.
mhm.
Hmm.
And we both talk a lot about trust and respect,
Yes.
but I think beyond her talking about it, she shows it to me
Mm.
like every day. This she finds a new way to show me what respect means, even if it's little things.
Oh.
Like it doesn't have to be okay, Lena. Like, you're trying to bow down. Like it's none of that. It's like
Yeah.
it's like I like black coffee.
Yeah.
Don't make me drink
Yeah. Yeah.
coffee with sugar in it. Like
Yeah.
oh, I make it like this. Okay, we make it like that. I don't know.
Oh my God, saying that, I actually saw something in social media, right? And again, to get the stereotype out, but there was a guy who was married with his wife for a long time and he wanted to prank a Latina. And he just put a camera and then he came in one day, she came in the house and he demanded to have coffee a certain way. No, a sandwich a certain way. And she goes, "Oh yeah." And all of a sudden, because he tried to get the machismo, "I'll give you a sandwich." She started flinging the bread and the sandwich and the cheese. She just threw it in his face.
So
"Oh,
there you
you want?"
go. He
So
asked for it.
right, because you can't just all of a sudden switch it upon, your partner, because you have this mutual respect, trust, and understanding. And out of nowhere, you're going to do that specifically to a Latina, she's gonna react. And so right there, it was a little examples like, this is what I like. I like it like this. And how do you feel she responds to something like that?
Again, she's understanding. Like she wants to know.
Yeah.
I don't have to really force it.
Yeah.
because she's asking.
She's asking, what is it that you want? What is it you like? So she's trying to get to know you on that deeper level as well. So deep understanding.
And I think that's really like the most important part. Um, and I don't speak for all men, like I can't,
Yeah.
but there's always been a little bit of anxiety,
Mm,
right? Like either be either because I know that I'm going somewhere different,
hmm
or I don't know what it is about that person that's giving me that feeling.
mm,
And if I look back over all the years, that anxiety was always there.
mm.
Like
Okay, go ahead.
it shows up in different ways. Like I thought it was like me being like really motivated, like I'm like, oh no, like yo tengo esa energía, like I could take over the world.
Yeah.
Really, I'm just anxious. So I need stuff to do.
Yeah.
And I think what I feel in this situation, when I'm trying to capture and to answer your question, is like I can go to sleep.
So that's what I was getting at. She gives you a sense of peace,
Yeah.
serenity, because a lot of the times relationships are like when they're right, they're supposed to be easy
Yeah.
and it feels right.
And we talked about this, and it's like it's hard to want to believe that. Like I couldn't say that I could believe that 6 months ago.
Right.
And maybe, like 6 months ago, me would call me today a hypocrite
Really.
because I couldn't believe it because it's never been easy.
Right.
There's always been something. I'm
hmm
not saying it's hard or like bad. Like there's no judgment outside of like it always felt like not right. And I think back to all the moments like ignoring that feeling.
Yeah, the
I
red
just I
flags.
paid for it later.
Yes.
And that's why like I don't blame anyone.
hmm
I'm like thinking back to the relationships where like the person was pretty much saying in so many words like I want something different than you. And I'm like, no, like we could figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's me rushing.
Stubborn and
Yeah, being
yeah.
stubborn. That's me rushing them,
Mhm.
or that's me not having the courage to be like, you know what?
Or having the feeling of not having someone.
Yeah. Because I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to be abandoned. That codependency, right? But
Yes.
it's like, you know what? I think the right thing to do here is to separate. Like,
hmm
it doesn't have to be bad, but if I'm being like a man or
hmm
even just an adult,
Yeah.
then I know this isn't it.
Yeah.
Because if not, uno se pone a pelear. Why are you
Yeah.
fighting?
And it's not even being an adult or a man or, or the right word is mature
Yeah.
and having full understanding. For example, I think you and I have had side conversations that everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
And when you go through life the way you do, there are lessons.
Yes.
And so getting metaphysical, so you already know that I'm very spiritual and metaphysical. Once you go back and actually see and reflect and feel, it's when you actually can see the growth. But a lot of folks, and that's including men and women, um, they don't tend to do that. They don't tend to take that time to reflect and go back, and they still keep living this broken cycle. I know
Yes.
a lot of women who, for the same reason, codependency, still are with partners. They are either abusive, they're not right for them because they need to feel validated, and they stay or they stuck or they're stubborn about being in this relationship, like you just mentioned. But when it's a woman, though, who is acting like that, oh, she's insecure, she's immature, she's codependent, is seen as a
A
bad thing.
negative thing.
And when a man is, oh, go ahead, finish it for me. What's the view like? When you go through it, it's not seen as bad. It's just seen, oh, he's just a man, or whatever. But when it's a woman, there's labels they put on. Not to get this into a male female
No,
thing,
I understand it fully. Yeah.
but it's true.
It's unfair.
Mm,
But no, I mean, well, for one, I owe you a thank you because I remember going through some of those difficult feelings and you
mm,
helping me find the courage to be like, move on.
yeah.
Yeah, like go, rip the band-aid, go. And like, I think either you get help from somebody or life makes you do it.
hmm
Because either way,
Yeah,
if it's not right,
it's not right.
it's not right. But yes, I do agree that like with men, we get aggressive as a way to handle our problems,
Mhm.
because we think that we could think our way out of it.
Mhm.
Eso es machismo.
Yeah, it is.
It's like
It's a machismo
you
thinking.
try to fix it with your ego when it's a matter of the heart.
Exactly.
And it's like, how immature can we be before the world realizes like we're wrong?
Mhm.
It's just hard to confront a man when they're aggressive.
Mhm.
But that doesn't end well for any man that goes that way.
No.
Like it never
They
does.
usually end up
Yeah,
alone.
they end up
Yeah.
alone. Or their oldest son comes visit them 16 years later to tell them they're good,
Yeah.
but they're out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't want to repeat any of those
Yeah.
cycles.
Okay.
And I think in the same vein, like therapy had taught me that as long as you talk about it out loud, you won't.
Exactly.
It's scary because you leave yourself vulnerable to people's
Mhm.
opinions.
Mhm.
But if you are confident or at least assured enough to become secure,
Mhm.
you start to realize you could take people's opinions for what it is, use
Mhm.
it if you want to or not.
Mhm.
And it's better to receive it than not,
Correct.
because there you're making a decision. You have a
Mhm.
choice. Now you're free
Yeah.
instead of hiding.
Exactly.
And I think that's the thing that really like grew out of all these different dating experiences for
Mhm.
me. I'm
Mhm.
not saying I'm like I have it fully figured out in any way. I feel
No,
like I still
nobody
have a lot
does.
to learn. I
Yes.
don't think I've met anyone that could say that they have
No.
now. But
No.
I'm very humble to how difficult relationships are and how much attention you need to pay,
Mm.
because
It's work.
it's work. And I
Oh,
think
work.
I think the professional side of me would tell like clients and business owners and executives like, look, now you got the thing that you asked for, you won the big deal or you got the big job or whatever. And people were like, oh, it's time to celebrate. I'm like, well, you do know what you just got, right? And they're like, well, we won the thing. I'm like, no, you got work now.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can celebrate all you want, but like, okay, you won that job, but like, you do know you have to wake up tomorrow and go work it.
Yes.
Which is back to that saying, right? Like, everybody likes to have sex, but nobody wants to take care of the children.
Right.
What I think that really means is like, everybody likes the fun part, but nobody
The
likes the
fun and
work,
pleasure, but they don't like the work that comes afterwards.
responsibility.
Correct.
And I think that in my years of trying to figure it out, which again I still am, it's like I realized that every time it was an
Mhm.
issue because the relationship was built on the fun part,
Right.
not on the work.
Correct.
And I think you said it earlier in a way that really I'm gonna take it with me in my
Mhm.
heart, which was like, if you come into it and you're both still learning,
Mhm.
there's no way in hell you don't end up in different places.
Right.
Porque eso es lo que no tú no lo estabas buscando. You were
Right.
just like, it was part of your journey,
Right.
not the final destination.
Correct.
And I think that's the thing that kind of has hit me the hardest. So I appreciate being able to talk about this with you, which I
Mhm.
knew was gonna be fun anyways.
Yeah.
But the questions like they didn't scare me as much as kind of like the clicking of a lot of things.
Yes, yes. Because you know how sometimes there's words that I say, it
It
hits,
clicks.
it hits in a certain way, and it does for me too with other people. But I think this is why I'm doing this kind of podcast, to have this communication out there, to open up the communication channels. If you're having a partner, a relationship, this can involve family, friendships, relatives that are long gone, like as he was mentioning, that live in another country and trying to reestablish those relationships. There's a lot of topics that Josh right here touched base on. And we as humans, we have to be real with ourselves and understand that these things happen. But I like to always say at the end of the day, when you know yourself, if you know yourself fully, nothing is going to scare you. And trying something new shouldn't scare you. People only fear things they don't know or things they don't understand. And someone like myself, I'll go for it because at the end of the day, I know myself. And as you mentioned earlier, that I gave you some advice, you just got to do it, you got to rip it because you were scared of letting that piece go. But look at where you're at now.
Yeah,
And now you're in a relationship that feels good, understanding, it feels easy. At some point, I'm pretty sure it feels too good to be true sometimes.
all the time.
Yeah.
Because, we're both strong willed, we're both independent, we're both people
Yeah.
that have our own visions, we're
Hmm.
willing to come together. And that coming together part has always seemed hard. Like,
I'm going to give you a little bit of advice right there because something that my father did always say, sometimes when you have two people, right, who are the same character. They got the same energy, like dos cangrejos in a basket. They're gonna fight all the time. However, if you can appreciate who each of you are and support one another, understanding that, and there's no stopping you.
Yeah.
But also remember that you're two not coming as one, that you're two coming together to choose a life together. But even you may have individual goals, but as long as you're supporting each other. So that metaphor of like two becoming one and then for me, that's false because you're still two different individuals. You come from two different backgrounds, two different educational backgrounds, experiences, and now you got to come together because once you both become one, now codependency happens.
Right. And you don't want that. You want
No,
interdependence.
correct. And you're making a choice to be together, but be interdependent individuals, but be more like a team. As you know, you're part of a team, right? In order to be a team, you gotta, highlight each other's strength and work on each other's weaknesses, but you gotta do it together
Yeah.
because you're only strong as your weakest link,
Yes.
right? And I'm pretty sure you say that in your seminars
Yeah, exactly. Like
that
in
you
this
do.
world.
Yeah,
And it applies in this world. No, it does. It's it's always important to realize that how you do one thing is how you do everything.
yes,
But that hit me really hard over the years. Because, I'll run 6 miles happily,
yeah,
but I didn't realize that that same stamina you need to have with your partner.
exactly.
I'll do the extra homework every evening.
Hmm.
I didn't realize that that same stamina you need to have with your partner
Yes.
because you could be paying attention
Hmm.
when it comes down to
Hmm.
money,
Hmm.
but if you're not paying attention to the way your partner feels,
Correct.
you're losing just as much,
Yeah.
if not more. Porque ahora tú lo tienes que pagar in a different way. You're paying
Yes.
for it in a different way.
Right.
But I hear you, and I appreciate that reminder. And I think the beautiful thing is that, um, in her experience, I've learned that she's been through a lot of trials and tribulations as well.
Hmm.
She's not going to settle for codependency.
Right.
And because we can share that language, as strong as she can be, I can
Hmm.
allow her to be because it
Hmm.
doesn't make me any more insecure. It just
Exactly.
makes me more secure in our relationship.
Yeah, you've learned to not let the ego get in the way because as you can see when that happened, it didn't work out for
No,
you, right? And that pride and
I don't
you
need to
know,
take control of the situation.
right.
I can be present and grounded in who I am
Hmm.
and allow that to build her up, build myself up, and build us up
Right.
so she could do her part as well. And I don't have to
Yeah.
overstep any boundary.
You're definitely right now in the early stages of your relationship, you're building a foundation for your building it strong and with intent.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens in a lot of, relationship. There's an intent or there's like rose colored glasses
Yeah.
on there. And then when, you know, poop hits the fan, not to get too much, but if people won't know what to do. It's hard to clean up. And I think when one gives up a lot for another, then the tables turn. And it could be, you might be there very supportive of, she could be very supportive of you and everything that you do in your endeavors and your professional success. And then, she takes care of the kid and then she wants to do something. Now you got to take the daddy role and be like a stay at home dad or something. And it just goes both ways. But sometimes that ego gets in the way of a lot of relationships. And sometimes just people don't understand. And it happens to both women and men. It happens more to men than women, statistically. But now with women rising and being very independent, a lot of men are opting to stay at home because the woman can do just as much and then some, right? So I think in relationships, dating in relationships nowadays, you got to have understanding. You got to have open communication and you got to have the will and the intent to making it work regardless because it's easy to take the first step to like let go or go. I've been married and I'm divorced, but I gave it 2 decades. So it's not that I didn't try, it's just that you end up growing apart, you know? when you're young and you're with someone and you have different experiences. I was more into the education and working, and he was more into the working and find like trying to make money. Your mind just changes and you outgrow the other person, or one person outgrows the other. If you are coming together and growing together, you're going to end up in different places if you're not communicating. But even if you do that, as long as you continue to have the support, you can still be in each other's life and be stronger. Like a tree branch, for example. You have that foundation and it grows its branches, and then it has little baby branches, which is your kids, but you're only as strong as your strongest branch, and you still have to hold each other together. No matter if a branch falls or breaks off, it still continues to bloom and blossom. So I think it's just having that core that is strong in any relationship. So I just want to say before we end our session today, it was so important. So let me ask you this, because you talked about a lot of the things that I wanted to mention. Um, when it comes to your advice and inspiration, what advice would you give to other men, Josh, and specifically Hispanic men, because of that egotistical, machismo kind of mentality, who are struggling to break away from that toxic masculinity and cultural expectations? Like, what kind of advice would you give your um, fellow peers?
I think it'll just be reinforcing something that you opened with. Um, know yourself. And I think the best way to do that in real life is to write about what you're feeling as much as you possibly can. And if you can build the courage to talk about what you're feeling,
Yeah. Okay,
even
there we go.
better. Because I think a lot of times we don't understand that emotions is energy. And if you don't walk them out the way you walk out your legs, if you need to, get some anxiety out, or the way you work out, right?
Yeah.
Then it just builds up inside. And
Hmm.
that's where the anxiety, that's where the depression, that's where the confusion, frustration, and the worst of it is the anger. You can't
Hmm.
manage the anger and you're just acting out of character. And you can do things that you regret, making difficult decisions with a full head of anger. You'll look back and realize that you would have done something different if
Hmm.
you would have just let all that emotion out. I think writing about it and talking about it helps. I mean, I would say cry about it, but that's like sometimes really hard to do when you
Hmm.
are just getting started.
When you mean writing, you mean like journaling?
Yeah,
Okay.
I open a journal every day and I ask myself how am I feeling today. But I don't
Hmm.
have to write anything crazy. Sometimes I feel like nothing. I'm tired. you know, the other days I'm like, okay, this person said this. It really made me upset.
Yeah.
And I think of ways to respond to them that are
Mhm,
healthier than what my first reaction is,
mhm.
because I don't want to just start off with, all right, well, fuck you too. But like, okay, why did I say that?
Mhm.
What is it that I can do to make sure that I have a better conversation next time I see them?
Yeah.
And that allows me to feel a little more at peace.
Mhm,
And if I feel that writing it doesn't help, I reach out to somebody.
mhm.
Ideally, somebody that I trust, somebody that I respect, somebody that's not going to tell my business to the world,
Correct.
but give me a safe space to feel comfortable opening up.
Mhm.
I again therapy for 10 plus years. I felt like therapy at first there was a stigma on it around it looking like for people that like are falling behind or need help with
Yeah.
something. But really to me it's like the same way you go to the gym. Like I don't want to ever stop being able to lift weights.
Right.
Therapy to me is like the number one way to never stop being able to communicate clearly.
Mhm.
Like I try my best to not be passive aggressive. I try my best to not be overly aggressive.
Mhm.
Back to the work that we talk about.
Mhm.
I like to be direct, and I like
Mhm.
helping people be direct because I think that can solve a lot of problems in the world,
Mhm.
especially for us as men. I could go out and as far as saying as Latino men,
Yeah.
like we're used to having maternal figures that draw emotions out of us.
Mhm.
And that's where the codependency starts. I
Mhm.
can honestly say that having gone through all those things as a child, mommy was there to say, like, you know what, puppy, like, it's okay, we're gonna be fine. Like, háblame, like, how are you feeling? Like, if she didn't come look for me, I
Mhm.
wouldn't talk.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as an adult, I realized it's not her job to tell me what to say
Mhm.
or to
Mhm.
make me say things.
Mhm.
But I think that for us, because of the way the culture supports us,
Correct.
we're used to being coddled. We're used to being babied. We're used to being put in a pedestal in a way
Mhm.
where it's like me tiene que buscar la vuelta.
Mhm.
And a lot of times that's unfair. That's a burden. That's
It
emotional
is.
labor that
It
doesn't
is.
get noticed.
Mhm.
And not until you can respect like the work that a counselor, that a director, a teacher, a therapist, a nurse,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
not until you can respect the art of holding space and having a conversation will you truly see like you are the
Mhm.
problem.
Mhm.
If you don't, especially if you don't know yourself,
Yeah.
and you're just saying things just to
Mhm.
say things.
And to that point, we can probably go on and on, but to that point is, women such as myself who probably say out there, I don't chase, right? Because of what you just mentioned. There are men out there who have been cuddled too much or who have been conditioned for women to look for them because of their ego. And so then when you refuse to do so, all of a sudden, well, I'm not going to chase you either. Right off the bat, you're letting me know in a very short amount of time that you're not ready for a relationship because you do have to seek out because that means you're too close in. Like you are so used to people looking for you, getting and giving you the things that you need. Then when it's your turn to actually get outward, you can't do that. And so it's a big red flag when a man says, I'm not going to chase you. No, I don't chase on nobody. You either want me or you don't want me. You can't, at the very beginning of a relationship, that is a big red flag when a man or the opposite side of you says that, because that means there's deeper feelings inside that are harboring, and I don't want to take a bomb. And
Exactly.
so the moment a person says that, mm,
Red flag. But no, I mean,
okay, don't. I'm not gonna chase you either.
but I think it's beyond relationships. When you know yourself, you're able to think rationally
Yeah.
about, you know, the way you spend your time. You
Hmm.
think rationally about the way you do business. You think rationally about the way that you grow as a person in every arena of your life.
Hmm.
And I think that's the goal. It's really like, how can you become so secure in yourself that even if you do have a weaker part to you, which is okay,
Right.
you know how to work with it
Right.
instead of it sneaking up on you. And
Yes.
now you're behind,
Right.
and I think those are the lessons that I have taken away that I like to share forward. Again, it's an everyday process. I don't
Mhm.
stop the
Mhm.
journaling. I
Mhm.
never feel like it's complete,
Right, and it will never be complete.
but I try my best to stay humble in it.
So, if you were to go back, would you change anything of your experience?
No, no, I think I needed to learn the lessons exactly how I learned them, and if I even start to entertain that thought, I know that there's more work to do.
Exactly. And before we end, a couple of things. You mentioned a lot. You mentioned that you surrounded yourself with, important folks that sort of guided you indirectly, and hence that's how we became friends, just sharing some advice and some topics. Would you say, would you give advice to those men to be surrounded by women and men who are emotionally mature to learn from? Like, what would be your advice? Is that a good idea for men who are seeking to keep growing and mature in whatever ways to be able to give their other partner, not just men, just anyone in general, give the other partner, like, what would you say? Like, do you think it's a great idea to surround yourself with folks who have good intentions for you instead of those guys? Come on, go ahead. There's another number or another girl be like, oh, who cares? What is your take on that?
Yeah, we always have to find the balance in the people around us. Because if you stay too close to one side of the advice, which can pull you right back into what you're trying to grow out of,
Hmm.
you're never going to end the cycle.
Right.
And misery loves company.
Yes.
So, a lot of times, if you're listening to somebody that doesn't take their own advice, you're pretty much poisoning yourself.
Hmm.
And that makes me think of something I think about often, which is never trust a bartender that doesn't drink. Like,
True.
if you don't drink your own drink, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
¿cómo es que tú me vas a poner a beber algo
Uh-huh.
que no, tú no te gusta?
Right.
And, I've heard it in so many ways. When I was working at Google, they used to say, like, eat your own dog food.
Hmm.
At first I was like, ill. But
Yeah.
then I thought about it and was like, okay.
Hmm.
Like, if you build something,
Hmm.
use it.
Correct.
And if you use it and it works, someone's going to trust you.
Yeah.
I use that same analogy to try to understand if a person's advice is worth it.
Mm,
Like it was easy for me to understand what you were saying because you showed me, you didn't just tell me.
right.
Right? Like you told me words, but you were also like, here's some of the things I did.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's kind of the best way to learn who to surround yourself with, whether they're male, female, whether they're more, like
Old, young.
old, young, stronger of demeanor, softer demeanor. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not everyone has the gift to be a little bit of everything,
Mm-hmm.
and that I think too is why you and I click the way
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm kind of a very strong person, but if you meet me as if I'm a very soft person,
yeah.
and I think the reality is we all need a balance, but we all need to make sure that the people that we're like going to,
Mm-hmm.
their bias doesn't get in the way
Mm-hmm.
because mal de ojo is real, right? Like
Yeah, evil eye.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
somebody could secretly be envious,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that there should be any penalty for somebody being envious as a human thing,
Mm-hmm.
but there's always got to be respect to the fact that maybe they're going through something and you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to go through it yourself.
Exactly.
And that to me is where I realize, like, yes, like finding counselors,
Mm-hmm.
finding healers,
Mm-hmm.
finding people that even if even if their advice may not make sense right now, at least it's sitting there. And there has been so many things I've said today that were told to me. I couldn't even tell you how many years ago. And I'd be lying to you if I'm telling you that I took it already, like, like I listened to
Right,
it.
right.
It took me so long and I went through all sorts of anger.
Yeah.
Like that one thing I told you that my friend said, not everyone's ready for what you're ready for.
Mm-hmm.
Him and I are still close to this day. And I remember I was frustrated with him for years for saying that because
Mm-hmm.
I felt like what he was doing was making me feel like I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, well, I don't care if you're ready or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get with
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
right? Like, what are you talking about? You're gonna miss your opportunity. And it's like, oh shit, wow, I was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the same sentiments.
And so I do think that even if you hear it and it doesn't work for you right now, it's important to have people that are willing to share advice with you. And the best way again to assess if it's good or not is do they practice what they preach?
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what it is. If
Mm-hmm.
you're telling me to wear this clothes, but you have nothing in your closet like it, for what?
Yeah, that's true.
Or live
That's
in this neighborhood, but I live way over there. No, no.
yeah, yeah. So to close up our session today, I think you have a very valuable words of advice, and I think you've done a lot of personal growth, and also worked on your professional business endeavors. And just to plug it in, Wendy, go ahead and talk a little bit about your business. I'm going to be plugging it in the description. But go ahead and because I know that you've done a couple of TED talks and whatnot. So go ahead and talk to the viewers, how they can hear from you or find you
Yeah.
and or even meet you.
I have an office in downtown Springfield in the Mass Live building on the third floor. And out of this office, me and my team, what we're trying to do is two things. We host public facing classes on communication skills. Sometimes it's public speaking, sometimes it's interviewing, sometimes it's learning how to meet people that you wouldn't necessarily find on your path by reaching out to them, whether they're in Springfield, in California, or in China does not matter.
Yeah.
But the point is communication skills, right? And with that, practicing those, you become more confident. You become more emotionally intelligent. You
Hmm.
become a leader in the sense that you know how to take information from your head and bring it to people, whether that's your family, whether that's your friends, whether that's your coworkers, whether that's your clients, whatever it is. Um, I think that communication in general is something that a lot of people don't practice
Hmm.
because we don't even know how.
Communication is the base of any dating and relationships.
Which back to the podcast, but beyond that, it's the basis of any team.
Yeah,
Anytime you
any
have,
kind of
yeah.
relationships.
And the second thing is consulting. So leadership development consulting is really thinking about how do you find people, recruiting, how do
Hmm.
you train people,
Hmm.
learning and development, and how do you manage people like performance management,
Hmm.
promotions, letting people go, whatever it may be. How do you do that in a humanistic way? And so the goal for that side of our business is to try to help the businesses in Western Massachusetts and Massachusetts and New England um, think about HR and human resources related services
Mm.
in today's world.
Absolutely.
So
So definitely check out the description. I'm going to put all the information how you can get in touch with Josh. And Josh, thank you so much. I love you so much for being here and spending time with us and giving amazing advice and telling us your story. And hopefully you've related with some of the viewers out there. And the viewers, thank you so much for being here. And until next time, take care. Bye.